Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted rank to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squad commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Looks like a refugee camp, but it's right here in America. 50 families are living in RVs and trailers in this encampment in North Carolina, and they're facing increasingly harsh conditions. They were all displaced by Hurricane Helene, which destroyed 70,000 homes back in September. Now winter storms and sub-freezing temperatures gripping the South are making life intolerable for them and so many others who have already lost everything and feel abandoned. Shauna is living in a trailer in the camp called Haven on the Hill.
I'm sorry. It's been really hard, but it really changes you.
The families are living like refugees, dependent on donations of food, water, and propane gas. The food is stored in a large tent.
All of these people living in trailers, living in tents in this deep freeze 4 months after the hurricane hit. Would you ever think that something like this could happen in this country?
No. I would think that they'd be more taken care of and I wouldn't have to hear about people freezing to death.
And there's the motorhome that we're staying in.
Dee Dee Buckner is sleeping in a donated camper outside the ruins of her house.
Some days you wake up and you're freezing. We're not getting the help that we should be getting.
She is hoping that will change following President Trump and First Lady Melania's visit to the storm-ravaged state today.
What's your message to the president?
President Trump, please don't fail us.
America first. That means prioritizing Western North Carolina over condoms for Hamas terrorists, people. Welcome to Transition Tuesday on the Rob Maness Show, and we're live on Worldview Tube, X-Spaces simulcast, over on Truth Social Plus under Worldview Tube, Rumble, YouTube, and Roku, folks. We're live everywhere. Well, more horrific stories like that are beginning to emerge out of Western North Carolina after President Trump's visit shortly after taking office, which is, these are good. It's good to get the truth out. Haven on the Hill confirms that over 50 families have been living like refugees for 4 months, relying on donations of food and propane to make ends meet. We've covered these stories. And with the discovery of these corrupt spending reports coming out of USAID, such as $50 million for condoms to Hamas terrorists in Gaza and more billions of dollars on transgender propaganda in South American countries, I'm more infuriated than ever how my people in Western North Carolina are being treated by this government. Not everything is doom and gloom, though. We've got a new acting FEMA director. Former Navy SEAL and friend of this show, Cameron Henry, is now on the job, and he gets it. We know he gets it. And yes, neighbors are still helping neighbors these many months after Hurricane Elena devastated this area. They are known to the locals as their angels. Well, my guest today to give us an update on the hurricane recovery efforts is Sean Hendricks. He's one of the great Americans getting the job done for the people of Western North Carolina. Sean has over 25 years experience in film and TV, which would eventually led him to competing in a Mr. Beast challenge to survive 100 days in a circle. Man, I can't imagine that. Sean's a survivalist and has served in search and rescue and firefighter roles as a volunteer for over 7 years. And most recently, he's gotten a lot of attention for his work in Western North Carolina with Operation Shelter, and rightly so, because it's good work. Sean, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm actually sitting in Raleigh, North Carolina right now. I've been up at the Capitol all day trying to figure out where the money's going.
Yeah, that's at the top of my question list after I give you a chance to update us on it since the last time you were on the show before Christmas. What what's been going on? I know you were in D.C. up in the swamp. Have you learned anything new? And how are people doing? I mean, we can pull these clips down a lot, but it doesn't give us a sense most of the time of the folks that are on the ground and how widespread something like this camper camp that we saw is, or if this is down to isolated instances. So what's going on in North Carolina these days?
Yeah, there's a lot of hope, right? There's a lot of hope that the people of North Carolina are going to get help from Trump. And so the mood has changed. We're actually seeing cleanup happen from the Army Corps of Engineers. We're actually seeing money coming into the areas and restoration, actually, even Operation Shelter, because FEMA is doing their job now and extending these vouchers till March. We can take our foot off the gas when it comes to putting in people hotels, and we actually just started our first home rebuild. So it's letting us actually do the work that needs to be done now that Trump has taken over.
Yeah, that's fantastic. This $100 million that I just saw reported out late yesterday, that's not gotten out of the North Carolina Treasury to the people of Western North Carolina. What's the story behind that? There's always a story. I mean, propaganda or talking points are great, but there's got to be a story behind this somewhere. Surely that's not a correct talking point, right? The money is flowing, right?
It's flowing, and it's slowed down a little bit. I talked to Representative Bell, and he said, "Look, the money being stopped up is political theater. We just got a new treasurer. This is just how things are. They got to look at this money that they're now in charge of and say, hey, can I put my name on where this money's going? This makes sense to me. Like, if I'm about to send $100 million, it's on my watch. I'm the captain of the ship. I want to make sure it's actually going to help people." And I just actually saw a document that's starting to show how they're laying the money out. And, I have some questions with the document. I'm sure a lot of people do. Like, if it's, this many X, how much we paying per X, right? Like, is this really being spent well, or is this being spent like typical government spending? Because if we don't get much money, we need to spend it smart. We need to spend it smartly. And there's no special interest that get their little kickback and little contractors that donate their money back to the parties. Like, all that needs to end. This needs to be spent in an efficient, business-like way.
Yeah, we're still seeing evidence that things like FEMA trailers are sitting in holding areas, and I saw a report this morning that FEMA had only placed like 2 of those so far, and looks like hundreds that are sitting in these holding areas and those kind of things. So, I mean, I'm very concerned about where they're going to be putting the money. The weather's still cold up there, if I understand it correctly, and people are living off propane, literally, right?
And it's hundreds of dollars a month in propane, right? It's very hard to keep RVs warm in the winter. Same with trailer houses, but it's quagmire. It's local quagmire. It's federal quagmire. A lot of rules and regulations, trying to get everybody on the same page to actually deploy these units. I mean, we've put out more houses than FEMA has, and we're hundreds of thousands in funding versus 30 billion. And so for me, it's like, I really feel like the government should set aside a fund and let the nonprofits that have been working on the ground spend some of this money. I was just talking to a good friend of mine who's basically working on that exact plan. I can build a house way cheaper than the government can, and then we can also raise other funds to go along with it. And so I'm just worried that this money is going to go through all these special interests. By the time it actually gets to the people of North Carolina, there's going to be 90% of it's been spent on special interest. I'm not saying that's happening. Yeah. I'm worried about that.
Yeah, I'm concerned about that too. I mean, look at what DOGE is finding just at USAID, and USAID has a teeny tiny budget when compared to the big organizations in the federal government, like Department of Defense and HHS and the VA. And those kind of things. So when you see that, and you see that the states have these networks of nonprofits also set up, like USAID is using at the federal level, I get very, very concerned, man. I really, really do. We got a question over in the audience. Let's go ahead and take that hand before we get to our first break. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, Joseph, sir. Yeah, thank you very much, sir. Yeah, just really quick, what exactly can we do right now that would actually help the individuals that are in these camps? Is there a fund? Is there a place that we can focus, something that we can throw up in our spaces? What can we do to actually help these people right now?
I mean, right now it's a money game. The problem is the amount of money that's needed is government level, right? We're talking millions, we're talking billions, we're actually talking 100, probably 60 billion, right? So it's big money. So the way you can help now, I mean, Operation Shelter is building houses one at a time. You know, we're going to change one life at a time. That's our scope. That's as big as we are, right? And you need to go to my profile on X. You can find exactly where our charity is, and we're a 501c3. So we're going to keep building houses as long as we can raise money to build houses. Mercury One's come alongside us to say, hey, if you can raise the money to build the house, we'll pay for the materials. So I'm already halfway there every time we start one of these. But we, you know, just like with the Starlinks, just like with RVs, we put out more than the federal government ever did. And so unless something drastically changes, it's going to be on us to rebuild these homes. And so these people did everything right. They did everything right in life. They had paid off homes. They were getting ready to retire, and everything was taken away from them because of the storm. And a check for $42,000 is insulting. And I actually had somebody from FEMA tell me the reason they offer to buy their houses is because it's simply because they don't ever have to worry about paying for that property again. Right? If they buy that house and turn it into a park, then we never have to worry about that house again as a disaster. That's why they won't just give us the money. FEMA's looking at it as, I pay you, I buy your house, I turn it into a park. That's one less person in a disaster area.
Sean, where are those ideas coming from? You know, I mean, look, the legal structure and the regulatory structure just in FEMA is vast, deep, wide, and multi-layered. But I'm seeing things that I've never, not even during Katrina, the recovery for that, were we hearing about the government guys saying, "Hey, we'll just buy your land for on the cheap because we don't want to deal with you building a home there anymore." And by the way, we're backed up by this regulation that says you can't build a home here unless you do this, this, and this, and it adds $100,000 to whatever you're trying to build. Where is all that coming from?
I mean, I can theorize, right? It's the desire to have, you know, smart cities and, you know, people live in the most, you know, in their mind, environmentally friendly way possible, where everything's within 15 minutes of you. But it's America. If I want to live out in the country on 60 acres of land, that's my God-given right. And if I got the money to do it, it should be my right. And if you're going to take my tax money and call it federal emergency management, then you shouldn't get to make rules on how you help Americans. If I have a Trump sign in my yard, I shouldn't be disqualified from FEMA. If I have a farm, I shouldn't be disqualified from FEMA, because FEMA is set up to help people in the cities. We've got people up there that's living on daddy's land for 100 years, and they've never subdivided it off to this individual because, well, it costs $4,500. And FEMA says, well, we can't help you because you don't own the land. So you're talking about my daddy up on the hill that owns the land. Well, you need to subdivide it. It's like, well, I'm broke. Where do I come up with the $4,500 to subdivide it? And how do I get a surveyor up here in the middle of a disaster? So it's a bunch of rules that basically kind of set up these scenarios where you can't win. And I don't know if it was necessarily intentionally done. It's just the state of bureaucracy. When things get complicated, and I keep saying, it's something I've always said, when the rules are hurting people, we have to change the rules, right? And that's just, there's been no desire to do that. Well, Trump gets elected, and things change, all of a sudden the rules change. It turns out it was always a rule issue, right? They said, okay, we can extend hotels till March. That wasn't a congressional order. That just happened overnight. Right. And so if we can do that, then it means the whole time that these people were suffering, they could have been helped just by a rules change.
Yeah. You've been working this for a while. When we come back from this break, we'll hear a little clip from Cameron Hamilton, the acting director of FEMA, just to introduce him to the audience that he's in place now. But you've been doing this for a long time. I want to get your take on some of this decision making or lack of it that's been going on. We'll be back in just a second with Sean Hendricks from Western North Carolina on the Rob Maness Show.
We're expanding more debt to help foreign nations in a way when we've got Americans here whose lives have been categorically ruined. I mean, it does bring up a legitimate concern over, wait a second, I thought the role of the federal government was to help American people first.
Yes.
And that's one of the unique things about the whole America First message that came on the scene. And some people have labeled it as, every name under the sun. But let's unpack the political slogan and talk about the principle. Should our wealth and resources be supporting American interest first and foremost? I think every American at the end of the day agrees, whether you're Republican or Democrat, of course.
The priority.
So should we prioritize people in North Carolina and Georgia and Tennessee and many other?
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Transition Tuesday, and that's the part of the show that is the Trump transition right there. Acting Director of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, Cameron Hamilton, a former Navy SEAL, ran for Congress in the state of Virginia. And unfortunately didn't get in, but now he's in the administration and he's bringing that attitude back, and we're starting to see evidence of it. My guest today is Sean Hendricks, who's been working with Operation Shelter and been working the Western North Carolina area for quite a while now, helping people out and just getting stuff to where it needs to be in the hands of those that need it. And recently been going around and talking to government folks out in the state legislature. I think he's in Raleigh today, having talked to his state legislator about this money that hasn't been supposedly pushed out properly. And Sean, that's good news. I know Cameron, I've had him on my show before. He's got the right viewpoint, but he's got a big challenge ahead of him, doesn't he, with this agency?
He sure does. We actually talked to him as a group, and he's listening to the victims, right? He's listening to the people on the ground that are experiencing this. He's cutting straight to the chase. And it's no secret. He reached out and said, "Hey, we want to talk to the people that you've been helping," and that means a lot to me, because sure, I can sit here and speak all I want. I'm not one of the people who lost their home. I'm not the one making the calls to FEMA as an individual. And so the fact that he called us and didn't talk to us and said, "Give me 10 people that you've helped that can tell me how things actually happened." And we did that. We talked to our people, said, "Is it okay if we share this?" And they said yes. And so we've connected him with the multiple people, and he's making those calls now. And that's the same thing with JD Vance. When JD Vance reached out to me, I talked to his team, and the stuff that I was concerned about is the things that I heard him ask about when he got to North Carolina before he was vice president. Yeah. And it's wild to me that the first major politician to reach out to me was the future vice president of the United States. And so since then I've connected with a lot of politicians, and and it's weird because I fit in I'm a weird box, right? I'm not a politician, I'm not a lobbyist, right? I'm just a voice for the people, and they're concerned because we have a lot of influence on the they call me the internet, which is really funny. But they get it that this is the new world. This is how it works. As a matter of fact, today at Raleigh, they're like, "Yo, you're the media now." So even that like X slogan, which is so funny, it just burns up traditional media so bad, is being used by politicians. They get it that they can't just rely on legacy media to tell these stories. Legacy media is not even reporting probably on this $100 million. It's something I had to come up here and figure out.
Yeah, no, I don't think I saw it on Legacy Media at all. I saw it through your feed when I was researching for the show today, and I've seen it on a couple of other types. I've obviously shared it, but I didn't break it. You guys broke it out of there, and that's both good, I think, because the best information comes from closest to where it originates. But our reach is we have to face that it's just not as great yet as it needs to be, and we just need to keep building it. And the legacy media is going to continue to stomp on its own toes and put its foot in its mouth and give us that opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. They've been here for 50, or how long? I guess 60, 70, 80 years. Legacy Media's been doing this. So of course we don't quite have the same footprint that they do. It's interesting. Do you know who Adam Smith is from Savage Freedom?
I do, yes.
I think he's actually, I'm going to wave at him right now. That's so funny. He's up here in Raleigh too. So I'm literally outside the Capitol right now. He's pulling over. Sorry, people probably don't realize I'm on a call right now, but he's up here doing the same thing I'm doing. Does he? Well, I'm going to get him over here. Let's get him over here. I think he's parking. He's actually parking right now. I tell you, this is the thing is we're not sitting behind a keyboard, right? We're actually out here.
Exactly.
He's up here doing the same thing I'm doing. He's fighting to find out how we can start rebuilding houses for people. And let me wave him over here. Let's see if I can come over. But anyhow, Cameron has a massive hill to climb.
Yeah. So a lot of these rule issues are leadership decision issues, is what you found out, right?
That's correct. Hey, I got him right here. Welcome to the Rob Maness show. You guys know this guy?
hey, Adam.
He says you owe him an interview.
Oh, I do owe Rob an interview. What's going on, Rob? How are you, man?
Good, man. It's good to see you out and about, and y'all are doing the same things. I'm just getting an update on what's going on up there with the recovery efforts and everything from Sean, and just wanted to say hello when he said you were walking by his truck, and say thank you personally for what you're doing, because y'all don't have to be doing this, and my people come from that area of the country, and we certainly do definitely appreciate what you are up to.
You helping us continue to push the message out there and let everybody know what's going on in Western North Carolina. I know Sean's not going to give up. We're not going to give up. We all gave our promises and our word, and we're going to abide by it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I definitely appreciate it. Let folks know how they can help you, Adam, right now. Since I got you on here, go ahead and, if you got a website or someplace they could go follow you and help you out.
Yeah, if people are interested in seeing what we're doing, they can go to savageops.org, and they can send me an email directly, adam@savageops.org. And they can also go to savagefreedoms.com and check us out there. And then also all the social medias are along the same names.
Yeah, go follow him on X.
Yeah, Savage Freedoms on X.
Savage Freedom on X. We got it. Thank you, man. I appreciate your time.
Heck yeah, Rob. I'll give you a call, man.
We'll get you connected.
All right, brother. Thank you.
All right. Had to do a selfie real quick. All right, man. We'll see you. Sorry about that. That was just like random serendipitous there.
No, that's what's great about the new media. Those are the kind of things that we don't get done by sitting behind a keyboard all the time. One of us may have to be in a studio, but we need everybody else out and about. That's what made the legacy media effective in the first place, is they sent people all around the world. You remember, reading about stories from reporters in the jungles of Vietnam when you were a kid, and Ernie Pyle in World War II, and those kind of people. They were just people like us that learned how to write and went and got sent out. So we've got to keep doing that. I appreciate you calling him over.
And the big thing is we didn't see him up in North Carolina. Now, I will give a shout out to Fox Weather. They sent Steve Bender down. News Nation sent Brian Edmond has become a friend of mine. He has been in Western North Carolina more than anyone. He constantly flies back down there to tell the story. And I just couldn't be more thankful for that. But you know who I've never talked to? CNN, MSNBC, any of the left mainstream media. It just shows that they're politically driven now. Because the story for a long time was in Western North Carolina and no one showed up. And that's unforgivable.
Yeah. Why do you think it got politically driven, Sean? Because, I mean, look, Asheville's right there. That is not exactly a Trumpian voting district right there, Asheville, North Carolina. So why do you think it got so politically driven to the point where the media just didn't want to cover it?
Because the scale of the disaster showed that you cannot rely on government for help. And so many people I met up there had put their trust in government. Government was their God, and it failed them. These are people that voted for Biden who now wish they had voted for Trump, right? It was probably the most important election of our lifetime as it goes for the direction of our country. And it became a political pawn. And it became a demonstration of why your faith should not be in government first. And so I think that's what it did. It just showed people that, like, oh my gosh, I can't just sit and watch TV and hope the government will help me. Because that storm left liberals and conservatives, out to dry. There's nothing that anyone did. And FEMA failed everyone, not just conservatives. It failed everyone. And the state government did too.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I've looked at a lot of clips from local government folks and state level government folks, and they seem to be pretty lost. And I think the way the FEMA system is designed is that the federal government can fall in and replace some of those services that get wiped out in situations like this on a temporary basis. But they have to be competent. And they have to be capable of dealing with whatever terrain or climate that they fall in on. And I saw a couple of things from the FEMA side, that these people that came in are from cities or flatlands. They're not from the Appalachia or the hill country even. That's number one. Number two, they're dealing with rules that were designed, as we discussed in the first segment, that seem solely designed for cities and towns and flatlands. They're not designed for that rural guy, as you mentioned, who's got a house on daddy's land and it's never been subdivided over to him. Farmers, or mountain people, those kind of things. But the locals, in some cases, especially in this one, were completely wiped out with all of their capability, and they couldn't reach up to the state or the federal level because of the competence level. Is what I think I've seen. Is that an accurate depiction?
It's a bit unfair for FEMA to think they could have done this. This was hard for anyone. I don't care if you were a special forces operator. This was a terrible nightmare environment. Bob Brinson, who's my state senator here in North Carolina, we met this morning. He was a lieutenant colonel, flew Blackhawks. He was stationed in Tokyo when Fukushima hit. And he flew helicopters to do disaster relief here in Fukushima. And he said he had never seen anything like that until Western North Carolina. I actually met him on an airfield. He's one of the guys that actually came up. And so that gave me a kind of a great appreciation for it. Because I watched the coverage of Fukushima. And for him to put Western North Carolina in that same boat is incredible. And so there was no one who could have been prepared for this. And I think it's a bigger testament to saying you need to be prepared yourself, right? People need to prepare. The government is not the answer. And but yeah, if you're set up with people who are used to a flatland hurricane where the water slowly rises and then slowly comes back down or surges in, but it doesn't come in with trees moving like tomahawk missiles, right? Like we experienced. I mean, trees would just take an entire house out, and it looked like a war zone. The other thing is too, I think remote work culture has destroyed a lot of our government agencies. All these people are used to sitting at home and not working. And all of a sudden a disaster hits and they all got to come back to work. Well, they just want to sit in an office building 2.5 hours away and not get out in the actual muck and work. Nobody was coming in and checking on people. Nobody was going to these hotels. Why was there not a FEMA rep? We have 20,000 employees. You could have put one FEMA rep at every hotel that had voucher programs to answer questions. But instead, these people who are panicked, get kicked out in 14-degree weather, are calling and sitting on hold for hours at a time. It's unexcusable. But remote work, like, oh, well, I'm so glad they're calling them back into the office. Yeah. It's time to show back up and do what the taxpayers are paying you to do.
Well, yeah, and you can't find out where the problems are unless you're out and about and you're talking to not just the victims, but people like you that are volunteers out, organizations and individuals that are out trying to work the problem in real time. If you're not out there touching that environment and communicating with folks, you're going to be ineffective. And I think that's what we're seeing, what we saw. Look, I don't think anybody should. I'm not criticizing them for inability to understand mountains, but I am criticizing them for not being ready from a rules perspective to handle any type of terrain and climate, because that's what we pay them to do. We'll be right back with Sean Hendricks on the Rob Maness Show. It's Transition Tuesday. We're getting an update on Western North Carolina, and I'm gonna go in and talk to him about the Corps of Engineers, because we're seeing some things, and you'll see it in the clip coming back in from the break that are very promising now, and it's about time. We'll be right back on the Rob Maness Show.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
For the next 4 months, this is what you'll be seeing. On Saturday, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, partnering with Ashford, got the approval to begin the next phase of the recovery process.
The next 2 missions we're going to start on, one of them which is right behind us here, which is a critical mission and tremendously challenging, of getting the waterway debris out of the stream.
Operation Waterway Debris Removal.
And you can see the complicated equipment that it takes, since we've got wonderful contracting partners here working under FEMA mission assignment to make sure they get with these waterways clean.
The team will be using a cutting-edge Ponzi machine, a specialized equipment engineered to access waterways under extreme conditions.
They are designed to be able to get into the waterways, marshy, swampy, boggy areas, to be able to get in, remove debris, remove vegetation. They are rated and especially outfitted to be able to operate within these waterways. They've got the biodegradables in terms of the fuels and the hydraulics. Obviously, we've got a couple of months of some really hard work ahead of us, so we'll continue to drive our contractors and our team as quickly as possible.
This comes on the heels of Donald Trump signing an executive order to speed up the rebuilding of Western North Carolina roads and pushing for increased efforts.
We've got the full arsenal of support at the ready, both in personnel and equipment, appropriate to get this mission done safely and efficiently for the citizens of North Carolina.
The work has already begun in Buncombe County and Polk County. There's no timeline as to when they'll complete this phase, but city leaders say they will remain on the ground until the community is back on their feet.
We'll be here until the mission complete.
In Swananoa, I'm Nitra Pettyhome, News 13.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. We're getting an update on Western North Carolina today from Sean Hendricks, my guest, who's been working with Operation Shelter and working with the people of Western North Carolina to get supplies to them, help them get shelter. I think Operation Shelter's starting to build their first house to replace a home from somebody that lost their house. So this is all good news. And I didn't want the show to be all about my fury. Which I am just furious when I see the stuff coming out of USAID and see what's happened here the last 4 months. It just makes me angry, and I think it makes every American angry, Sean. But what we just saw there, although I think it's way late, it's good to see that the Corps of Engineers is clearing those waterways in Swannanoa. I did one of my early interviews with somebody standing right there on that river, and it was completely blocked.
I tell you, I really want one of those machines. That's about the coolest thing I've seen. That looks like a lot of fun to operate. It is late, but it is important. If we don't get the waterways clear, tourism won't come back. And if tourism doesn't come back, jobs don't come back. And if jobs don't come back, we're going to lose a whole second round of property to the banks, right? You're going to have foreclosures, you have businesses going to bankruptcy. So this is super important work, and it makes me mad that it didn't happen 4 months ago, but I can't change that now. But it does need to happen. And the thing is, too, is when you're sitting there suffering and you don't have money, you don't hope, and you're watching your business bank account slowly dwindle to zero when you file bankruptcy and lose a family business or lose family land, yet you read these stories of all this disgusting waste being sent overseas for not even for good reasons. For ridiculous programs. I can't wait to go to the Colombian Orchestra or whatever it was, you know. Like, why are we spending money on this? I get why we started it. We started it in 1961 with JFK to help hold off communist influence. Now we've turned it into a redistribution of wealth engine. It's literally what JFK was trying to fight, it has become. And it needs to be dismantled.
Yeah, and the so-called American values they're spreading aren't really American values. You know, when you first hear about that, you think about, wow, they're giving out, pocket constitutions and declarations of independence. No, they're spreading this woke garbage, and most Americans don't believe it. So, from a lessons learned perspective, the question when I see the clip is, why did it take Donald Trump first being elected and then actually going on a trip there to trigger all these resources when the resources were there? I mean, from a lessons learned perspective, you've been working this issue on the ground for a long time. What advice will you give people, citizens, when they see stuff like that developing? Maybe that we can head it off in the future if we're impacted by something like this and we see this developing that way.
That it's 4 months late, to be fair. There is a phase of recovery. There is a phase of rescue that has to happen. There's a phase of stabilization before we roll in giant equipment. And then you even heard him say it in the interview. It has biodegradable fuel, biodegradable hydraulic fluid. The tires are special. It's highly specialized equipment. It may be on another job. It's not like North Carolina. I'm guessing North Carolina doesn't own these machines, right? They just got laying around. These are probably very expensive. So I do have a bit of grace to say, like, this type of big thing takes time, but we weren't getting updates either, right? And nobody's doing a good job at explaining why things are happening. And I think that's on the government. Like, come out and say, look, guys, it takes 2 months to get this special equipment. It has to come in from who knows where. We got to run this special fuel in it because we don't want to kill all the fish in the river, and then people go, okay, I get it. But when it just shows up 4 months later, it just feels like you don't care. So I'm trying to see it as a devil's advocate of, like, this is a big job. It takes time, and I understand that. And the Army Corps of Engineers is a big organization that doesn't move fast.
Yeah, I have lived either on the Mississippi River or just adjacent to it or at the mouth of it for the last 13 years. The Army Corps of Engineers does not move fast, and when they do move, sometimes they don't move correctly either, and have to get some politicians involved. But and I get that. You have a recovery phase where you're trying to help people save lives, recover folks, account for everybody. And those kind of things, but it doesn't take 4 months, man. It's I'm with you. It just shouldn't have showed up out of the blue, and it certainly shouldn't take up a new president of the United States and new leadership. Something's not quite right. I hope Cameron has a good team around him, or is building that team, so they can do a deep dive into this, because it's not just frustrating, it's concerning.
It is, and they're doing a deep dive, and I have confidence that they are. And in my mind, 2 months after the storm would have been a fair time to start, right? And that means we missed the mark by, but 2 months to this town could be the difference between a business going bankrupt or not, right? And when we don't have good aid in place, if you're going to tax us to death, then we should have benefit of those taxes, right? Like, well, I'm a business owner. I know that the property tax that I write a check for every month, every year, the taxes I pay on a quarterly basis, the income tax that I pay. I mean, you pay all that money in. It's like pointing fingers at insurance companies. I've been paying insurance to the federal government, and you didn't show up, and that feels pretty terrible, especially when you're sending my money overseas.
Oh, absolutely. We've got another question from the audience. Let's go ahead and take that before we get to this next break. Go ahead, Shell.
We have Liz, sir. Good afternoon, Colonel. Good afternoon, Sean. You may or may not be able to answer this question. It's been brought to my attention that the vehicles strewed everywhere, and now they're wanting to charge North Carolinians what amounts to a ticket for having their vehicles piled up on the side of the road or on debris or whatever. And these people are already warning. Is there somebody we can call to say how idiotic that is? Is there anything we can do to help with that? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I broke that story. I'm pretty sure I broke that story because it went super viral. Probably the most watched video I've ever posted, because parking tickets just hit a chord with people, especially parking tickets on a destroyed car in a disaster zone. Yeah, so what it is, I got Buncombe County actually responding to my post, right? They came out and said, this is not a parking ticket, this is a notice to move. I'm like, okay, cool. What happens if I don't move it? Well, it's a $500 fine or 30 days in jail. Seems like a parking ticket to me. This is easily fixed by changing rules. Right? Buncombe County could have said, hey, we got a problem. We got all these cars sitting around. What if we set aside a lot and we move all these cars to it? And we give people 90 days to come retrieve their cars, or we're going to have them crushed. We don't need to start charging impound fees, because they're going to use a private towing company who's then going to come after you in collections for towing the car, and these people are already hurting. And so you just got to look, they're just tone deaf, right? They should have looked at it and said, it'd probably look really bad if we just follow the rules of flagging all these cars with these notice to remove, right? We're probably going to get drug in the comments. But they don't think that way, because they kind of live in their own little bubble. And so I thought for 10 minutes that I could figure out probably 3 different solutions that we could have handled this better. The way you can help with this is stop voting for people who act like this in your government. Show up to your council meetings, listen to what stupid stuff they're saying, and hold them accountable. We have AI now. You can take your council meeting notes, run them into AI, and give yourself a quick summary of all the stuff that they're talking about. You can ask the AI questions like, how is this going to cost me money? And it'll do the analysis. And then you go to your city council meeting and go, hey, you guys talking about this silly idea here, we don't want it. And you post on social media, and because these people want to be liked. These people in government want to be liked, and they want to be elected. So if they don't know that you're mad about something, they're just going to keep doing what they think's best. And if no one challenges on them, they say, oh, that must have been a great idea. I'm so smart.
Do you think it's that, or we had this, I served in government for over 30 years of my life, and I always tried to hold myself accountable to the public, and even though I was in the military, I still felt like I'm a public servant. I'm not some individual that's disconnected from the people that I'm here to protect, in my case, in the military. And as I got more senior and dealt with the public more as a commander, I felt that responsibility even more. But I see a distinct lack of governments at all levels, elected officials, whether they're civil servants or not, or elected, as trying to say, wait a minute, I know better than you. I don't have to keep you informed. I'm making decisions based on what I think is the right thing to do. and they really don't feel like they should be held accountable, and that leads you to make bad decisions like what we're talking about, because you don't think it through. You don't think you have to.
Yeah, you fire them. You find out who they are. You run against them. Your local levy seat. You find patriots that want to see smart people in government, and you create a network. It takes a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and there's not much monetary benefit. These people do it for the power. And so it keeps a lot of us out of it. I don't know if you know, but a North Carolina senator makes $13,000 a year, right? The only people that can do this are retired people and rich people. And so the regular hardworking guy that's got a good head on his shoulders, if I came and did this, it cost me 90 to 100 grand a year to be a senator in North Carolina. I'm willing to do that because I think it's important for my kids, but that's the system we've set up. And even today, the Treasury had their first meeting of the Treasury. We're talking about all this thing. Everybody's upset about this money, and they stream it live on Facebook. There's 7 people. I'm like 9 million people in North Carolina. 7 care, and I shared it on my platform. And so we have to take the power back to the people, by the people, for the people. And when we don't care, they will do what they want. If you show up, I met with Senator Blake and Senator Tiss. I looked them in the eyes and said, I was people in North Carolina that I know, and the people that I'm up here speaking for, that follow me on X, want RFK, Tulsi, and Cash confirmed. And guess what? Not just because of me, but their phones were also ringing off the phone. And guess what? Both of them are doing, rightfully so. They're voting for those people. But we forget that when it's a local government.
Yeah, we got to take this last break. I want to talk about that and how you're becoming involved and are involved in politics and getting people registered to vote and why and those kind of things. And when we come back, we'll see a positive clip about an angel in Batcave, North Carolina. My guest is Sean Hendricks today. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Is the government tracking you? Do they have access to all your data? Well, if you go to worldviewtalk.com, you'll find out about a cell phone company that, does not store your data. They don't do that. This is what they're known for. They don't store your data. You have privacy. You're not being tracked. That's why a lot of folks are turning to worldviewtalk.com. You'll find their prices are very competitive. All the details are there. worldviewtalk.com. Again, worldviewtalk.com. Oh, while you're there, not only do they have cell phones that aren't tracking you, you can find out about how to get a satellite phone. Should the whole system go down and you want to communicate with a family member or a loved one, you might want to have a satellite phone. Or how about their solar generators? They have great solar generators. Check them all out right now. worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com.
Worked till 9 last night, and even though it's cold and dark, we got lights and just try to do all we can do.
The owner of Precision Grading is doing thousands of dollars in construction and demolition work for free for those affected by Helene.
They're not getting help from anywhere else, so I couldn't give them an estimate. So I just said, well, I'll just do it,
This time, he's demolishing a home in Batcave, swept away by the water, taking it apart piece by piece.
It's kind of putting a closure to the whole thing, I think. It'll end it and let's get a fresh start.
But Jake Jarvis knows it's more than just another construction job, and some things are worth recovering.
Oh my gosh, look, he got the chandelier over the dining room table. There's the Little Prince. Oh, my favorite book in the world. I've had that book forever, so long ago.
Thanks to his own savings, dedication, and the donations of others, he's been able to literally build bridges in communities all over the mountains.
The last people we got out, they hadn't been out in 90 days, and they were elderly and they were walking a half a mile every day to get out, and we built them a river crossing, and just people like that can't wait.
In the days following Helene, he was the first in Batcave to start clearing roads.
He was a godsend coming down through. He opened the roads up so you could get through.
Now he's focusing on people who have nowhere to turn.
They wouldn't be able to recover from it at all. It's just it's unreal what God's doing through him.
Very fortunate to have all the angels that have appeared, and he's one of them.
He's working on a list of more than 30 people who need his help, and Jake says he has no end date.
Hard time letting anybody down at this point, but you know.
In Batcave, Gracie Matisse, News 13.
And the Community Foundation of Western North Carolina has now distributed more than $20 million. $1.5 million is going to ABCCM for emergency financial support for families.
And we've partnered with CFWNC in our Together WNC effort. Grab your phone and scan the QR code there on your screen if you would like to donate.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Transition Tuesday, and we're getting an update on Western North Carolina, talking again with Sean Hendricks, who's worked with Operation Shelter and has been working up in this area this entire time, getting stuff to the right people. And Sean, I had to show that story. She caught my attention when she called him an angel, and that's kind of the way I feel about all of you all that have been working so hard as volunteers, man, and literally putting your lives on the line and your livelihoods, and your families are sacrificing because of time away. And those kind of things, but it's worth it. And I just wanted to say thank you, and maybe give you an opportunity to talk about maybe the family that you're helping with the house build with Operation Shelter, or some other nice story that you want to get out there.
So this lady we're helping paid her house off in 2013. She's got her grandkids living there. She's getting ready to retire. And you find out that you have to start over. Imagine starting over when you've already paid your house off and there's no help. I mean, she got her check for $42,000, but the cleanup that we just did, we're currently, if you follow us, we're currently cleaning up the property. We've got 3 men with machines for 7 days. I mean, I've already spent $5,000 in dumpster fees, right? We're not even done cleaning up her property. It's going to cost more than $42,000. Now we're dealing with well permits that aren't on the records, septic permits that aren't on the records. So now we're running into county issues. And this person's saying, well, that's my septic tank. I've been using it for 20 years. And the county says, nah, nope, nothing on record. And then a lot of the community was sharing a well. And they say, oh, you're not approved for a community well. So what do? Cut all the other houses off the well so she can get her house built again? It's her well. So now we're starting to find all these again, regulations that are slowing us down. But good news, because we're helping her. I mean, she's trying to do this, working her job. She got her grandkids, and she's got $42,000 to start from. When you're talking about wells, septic systems, we have to build her driveway, 400-foot of driveway. $42,000 is gone before you ever put a board on a house.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to build her a whole house. We're going to build her. We're covering everything.
Fantastic, man. Fantastic. Well, I have to ask you about this. We kind of touched a little bit on politics throughout the show here, but I did catch a clip of you talking about registering voters at a gun show and everything. I'm glad to see you are involved in that area, because I want to see. I got involved in the political arena and stepped into it in 2013. And have stayed in it ever since in various ways. And I encourage people that have done other professions to get in the arena, because we need you. So A, I wanted to say thank you for doing it. But B, why are you focusing on registering gun owners to vote?
Family business. And so we're already at these gun shows. My daughter has a freeze-dried candy business. So she's 10 and she sells freeze-dried candy. And we go to these gun shows, and apparently, according to Scott Pressler, 30% of gun owners are not registered to vote. And the DNC just made David Hogg the vice chair of the DNC. So you know exactly where they stand on gun rights. And so I actually had a Democrat from New Jersey that's registered Republican, because she had no clue what's going on. I talked to her for like 30 minutes. She was just blown away everything we talked about. She kept going to her phone to fact check me in real time. And she's like, this is insane. I'm registered Republican. you know. And so actually Scott Pressler reached out to me. We're going to get together soon, and he's going to help me do what he's been doing in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, but in North Carolina. So we're going to keep North Carolina red. We're going to make it redder because it's sliding a little too far the other way. But specifically gun shows, because people, if you're buying a gun, you would probably care about your gun rights, and there's a party in the country who wants to take those away from you. So that's why we're focusing on gun shows. But we're gonna do more than just gun shows.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Scott's Early Vote Action organization, I've interviewed him a couple of times, and I was shocked to find out the number of hunters, firearm hunters, you know, hunters that use guns that don't vote. You know, in places like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, it's crazy.
Yeah, and and also too, here's what I'm most surprised about. Had a lot of conversations with people at the gun show. It's how many people have no clue what's going on. Just full head in the sand. You know, they know Trump's president, oh, Biden was terrible or whatever, but they don't even, like, you ask about the USAID story, they would have no clue. You ask about anything that's one level deeper, and they just don't know. There was a very similar interview over in California where people in California didn't even heard of the hurricane in Western North Carolina. There's so many people who are just going through their day hoping things don't get bad. And gun shows have a typical certain crowd that leans a certain way, and my job is to wake them up, get them politically active, and take every office in our state back, which will be the best thing for North Carolina. Progressive politics is not what North Carolina wants or needs.
Now, you've spent a lot of time in that area. Have you spent much time in the Asheville area? Do you think there's a possibility that we could get actually some gun-toting people elected to local government there?
Friends who I spend a lot of time with up there were Biden voters who are Trump fans now. And that story is not just one, it's over and over again because you get to know people, and you know, they get, even when I was doing aid work in Asheville, I'm at this this downtown place that's full of liberal people helping. They're doing the same thing we're doing, right? And they're just trying to help their neighbors, and this is their neighbors. And you know, you can just tell by the shirts they're wearing or how their hair is or the flags. You know, you can just tell kind of where their politics probably lean. And here I come in with a big four-wheel drive truck, camouflage boots on, and nobody cared then. We were all Americans. And I didn't care how they voted, didn't care. We need to get back to that, of us all being Americans, putting America first and voting that way. We need to stop letting the media split us so far down the middle. Even people who are on the left, when I talk to them, they're really not as far as they think they are. But they're not as far as the party's gone, right? When we have a conversation, we recognize that we all kind of want the same thing. And that's to, you know, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is a fundamental of our country. And we let the media tell us how each side is. I think it goes both ways. So I met a lot of great people on the left that aren't what I thought. You know, we have a few differences of opinions that are probably never going to change. But at the end of the day, we were all about North Carolina, and we are now all very much America first.
Yeah, that's what's neat about the first concept is a friend of mine who passed away suddenly last winter wrote a book called The Road to Americanism. And I call myself an Americanist because that's what I believe, in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that this country was designed to where I have the power and the government people are public servants. That's why we call them that and everything. And I think that's what most people expect. And the division is literally created, like you said, by the propagandists. Because look, here's something I learned about the USAID story. You know, one of the stories that's out there is about how Bill Kristol, you know who Bill Kristol is. He's the head of this Preserve Democracy non-government organization that's getting all these grants through USAID. Well, guess what? There is an identical Republican organization, non-government organization, that's getting almost the exact same amount of money from USAID. And it's got people on the board that are not exactly MAGA-ites. America First people. So that kind of confirms what you were saying. All of us here in the middle, we believe in America. We believe in putting Americans first. We believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness by and large. I mean, I'm even a fan of Nicole Shanahan, who was Kennedy's VP nominee. And before I ever heard of her, when I first heard her name, I'm like, I think that's a far left-wing nut job. But I'm following her closely, and I'm going to help her primary some of these people.
I mean, we got Tulsi, we've got RFK, and my dad used to always tell me, he's like, left wing, right wing are both part of the same corrupt bird, and so we got a lot of work to do on the right. There's a lot of work to do on the left. We need to come together as the American people and stand up for our country and take back the power in government. And that means, unfortunately, for a lot of us, having to do something hard, and that means run for government.
Exactly right. Well, Sean, thank you very much for doing everything you do. We'll touch base again in the future and get you back on. Maybe I can come up there and actually pay a visit, and we'll do an in-person interview. Sean Hendricks from Western North Carolina. Tomorrow's Whistleblower Wednesday. Ryan Swayze, retired Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Air Force fighter pilot on the Inspector General corruption. And the president, he fired 17 of them. So it'll be an interesting show. See you then.